Well, hello everyone. Good afternoon. I am so delighted that you could join us in the live stream this afternoon. I very much wish that you could be here with us. I know you're live streaming from far away, from other places, and also you're live streaming close by. I know some of our friends from Linda Valley are there with us. Thank you so much. We have a lovely place here this afternoon. The ladies have been enjoying tea, and I trust you have been enjoying a cup of tea as well. I'm sending you my love personally, and I hope that maybe next year you can be here with us. We love it that you can join us. Pretty soon we're going to be watching a lovely video of our memories from years past, and thank you for being with us via the live stream.
Good evening, everybody. Can I get your attention? We have now joined our live stream, and we have our audience watching. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the program. And I just want to tell you how excited we are that you are all here. Doing that virtual Christmas tea. How many of you watched the virtual? Oh. Wow. Oh, good. I'm so glad. I'm glad. Because it wasn't our cup of tea. We didn't like it very much. I got to be honest. Oh. Anyway, I want to draw your attention to the bookmark that's on your tables that actually reminds us of the theme that we chose last year for this year's Christmas tea. During the virtual tea, we gave you a challenge to continue to find creative ways to take up the commands of Jesus and to care for one another in the middle of the constraints and the craziness of the pandemic. Women, you really are experts at all 59 of the one another commands that Jesus gives us. But I just want to pause and highlight one. Out of the 59 commands, I have to ask you, which one would you choose as the easiest, yet the most powerful of the commands that may have the greatest effect on people's lives, and especially the lives over this past year? Well, my choice by far is that we are to pray for one another. I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner at the Children's Hospital Emergency Department, and I've been reflecting on this past year and thinking about how far we've come compared to this time last year. Instead of sharing stories of struggle and heartache and triumphs, because there were so many, countless people lost their lives, people lost their loved ones, and they lost their jobs. It was truly the most difficult year I've experienced in the 32 years I've had the honor of working in our hospital. Instead, I want to just take a moment and thank each one of you. On behalf of all of the healthcare providers working in the mission field just a stone's throw from here, we want to say thank you for the countless prayers that have been sent up to God on our behalf. I want you to know that He has been listening, and I get emotional because this has been a rough year. All right. We couldn't have done it without your prayers, I'm telling you. I wish I could tell you that that 5-letter word is gone, but it's not. COVID is here, and unfortunately, I'm afraid it's moved into the neighborhood and it's going to stay here for a while. What I can tell you is that we know much better how to tackle it compared to what we did last year. In fact, we were just reminiscing about it in the emergency room last week. I must tell you, in the beginning, we had no idea what we were doing. There were no clinical pathways, no treatment regimen, no guidelines for us to follow. We were literally flying blind. It felt like we were making up strategies as we went along that would change on a daily basis. There were times that were incredibly exhausting, overwhelming, and even terrifying. But I can honestly tell you that we never wavered once in our commitment to take care of everyone and fight the war and fight the battle against the unknown. I believe your prayers made all the difference for our stubborn resolve. I'm thrilled to tell you that we are winning the battle. Compared to this time last year, it is truly night and day. There is hope, and by the grace of God, we are truly going to get through this once and for all. I remember walking out of the emergency department one night for the first time, seeing the banner that's hung over the employees' parking structure that says heroes work here. I remember thinking to myself, we're not heroes. We're just simply fulfilling our daily mission and our calling to be the hands and feet of Jesus that are held up and supported by the prayers of people like you. So from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you. Thank you for your loving support. Thank you for your cards, for your gifts, for your treats. Daily, we knew that our community was really supporting us and holding us up. But most of all, we want to thank you for your tenacious prayers sent up on our behalf. I promised you, God hears every word, and I promise you, should you ever have to darken the doors of the emergency department, or heaven forbid, be admitted to our beautiful new hospital, there will be dedicated hands to greet you and to care for you, because that is our calling and that is our mission. I personally have seen Jesus in action and walking the very halls of that sacred place. And should you have to come in, he'll be there waiting right along next to us. Now, on a more positive note, we want to turn your attention to the screens as we take a walk down memory lane and remember our cherished moments that we've had over the last 21 Christmas teas. 21. I've done 20 of the 21, and it's been a pleasure.
What a sweet memories. How wonderful to go down memory lane and remember the times we have spent together. So this afternoon, as we continue our program, I want to introduce our speaker to you. You can continue to enjoy your tea, and I'm going to ask you, because we are live streaming now, that if you remain seated, that helps our media team to be able to capture our program this afternoon better. So I want to tell you a little bit about our speaker, Debbie Brownfield. Debbie was born and raised in Denver, Colorado, and has lived the majority of her adult life in Southern California. She is a person that loves the Lord, and she's very grateful for God's unlimited love and mercy and grace in her life. Through the hard, she has discovered that God has been faithful to her every step of the way. She's grateful, especially, that God does not waste any of our pain. I truly believe that. I personally believe that God takes advantage of every circumstance in our lives to draw us closer to Him. Debbie says that He's the ultimate recycler, turning our sorrows into joys. Debbie loves to encourage other women in the midst of their heart and desires to plant seeds of hope in their hearts. She's the wife of Michael Brownfield, who recently retired as a pastor in Honolulu, Japanese SDA Church. And Michael is one of our service here this afternoon. Currently, Debbie is part of the Loma University Church Grief Ministry called You Care, and I know you and Michael work together in that. She's a mother, a grandmother of 11, and she enjoys painting, crafting, reading, but most of all, delights in God's beauty that surrounds her. So this afternoon, I ask that you would help me welcome Debbie Brownfield.
When I was a little girl, my dad brought home a big old plastic Santa. He was probably about as tall as I was at the time. Now, why Daddy brought home a plastic Santa is beyond me, because Santa really was not a big deal in our home. But after looking at Santa's face, we could understand, because Santa's face was jolly and you couldn't help but smile when you looked at him. His face was round, his cheeks were chubby and pink. He had a curly beard and a perfectly manicured mustache. And on the end of his nose were perched a pair of glasses. Now, he was wrapped in what looked to be red velvet fabric. And it was trimmed out in a fur collar around his wrists, his cuffs, the bottom of his jacket. He was just too cute. Holding it all together was a black belt and a golden clasp. His feet were covered in black boots. Top it all off, Santa was wearing a red cap, fur trimmed, of course, and at the end was a round snowball-shaped tassel. Now, with that description, you can't help but realize Santa was kind of cute. And he did make you smile, and so I could understand why Daddy brought him home. And that year, Dad put up a ladder, pulled old Santa Claus out, got up onto the roof, and strapped him onto the chimney. So that way, not only could we enjoy him as a family, but the neighborhood could enjoy him as well. Well, a storm blew in. I was raised in Denver, so a storm blew in at Christmas time, and the winds were really strong, and it broke that snap that was holding Santa in place, and poor old Santa went cartwheeling down the street. His landing was unknown at the time. After the storm passed, Daddy went out on a search mission, and sure enough, what did he bring home? Dear old Santa. He was a little beat up, however, had a few cracks here and a few cracks there, but that didn't deter Dad. Since Christmas wasn't over, he went back up on the roof, secured Santa a whole lot tighter, and he finished off the Christmas season. Now, this was a routine that Dad kept up year after year. And of course, You know, we're all getting older and we get a few cracks here and a few cracks there, and our color tends to fade. Well, same with dear old Santa. He was fading, but that didn't stop Dad. And at the end of the Christmas season, my mouth is dry, hold on. At the end of the Christmas season, Daddy would drag the old guy down. He would stuff him back in, slide him back in to the box that was now yellowing and dilapidated, and put him somewhere on the rafters in our garage. And it was there that that Santa waited out till next Christmas. Santa was cute. He made us smile. He was a tradition. Now, traditions are marvelous things. This one has been going on for 21 years. I'm just curious, how many of you were here at the very first Christmas tea that Loma Linda put on? Just raise your hands real high. Ah, there's a few of you. And some newcomers as well, including myself. I'm glad for this tradition. It's very, very special, and I'm glad that it is continuing. Other traditions that we have is Christmas lights that adorn the outside of our home. Maybe you all have your Christmas trees up. I mean, this room looks so lovely. I might camp out here for Christmas. Poinsettias fill our house. Maybe you've wrapped your Christmas presents and they're perfectly sitting underneath your tree, just waiting for Santa to appear. Another holiday tradition is maybe you've worked in a couple of Hallmark movies along the way, if you could stomach it. And of course, we all pull out Aunt Agnes's favorite recipe that we make this time of year because it's not so good, but it's tradition. Traditions, we all have them. Another tradition that we have at Christmas, and we saw one as we came into the room this afternoon, was the Christmas manger scene, the nativity, the Christmas crush. I have one sitting on my coffee table. Perhaps you have one too. Maybe it's placed on the fireplace mantle or some other special place in your house. Of course, in the nativity scene, what are we going to find? We're definitely going to see Mary and Joseph. We're going to see some wise men, maybe some shepherds, a cow or two, maybe a donkey, and a fresh bed of straw, and on it will be figurines of little lambs sleeping. But you know, we can't forget the star of the show. And that's baby Jesus. He's cute. This one is especially cute if you look at him up close. He even has little false eyelashes. Now, this baby Jesus, besides being cute, he's quiet. He makes no demands on my life. I can place him here, or I can place him there. I dust him off when he needs it. I can think about him and spend time with him, really thinking more deeply about the Christmas story. This baby Jesus is easy to share with your neighbors. You can talk about a baby Jesus easily. Or you don't have to talk about him at all because he's just plastic. This baby Jesus doesn't know, doesn't care. He's safe, and he's cute. But much like the Santa Claus that adorned the chimney of our home, that Dad slid into the box and then into the rafters of our garage, we can all too easily take the baby Jesus that is sweetly sleeping in the manger, and after Christmas is over, we can put him back in the box until next year. We can close the lid. We can put him in a cupboard in our house or some dark corner and essentially forget about him until next Christmas. Jesus is the reason for the season, right? But all too easily, the season's over, and Jesus is in the box. But here's the good news. Even though we may put Jesus back in the box of our life, Jesus never puts us in a box. He will never put us in some far distant corner of our world, of his world, and forget about us. He is Emmanuel, God with us. He is with us during the hard. He is with us during the good, the bad, and the oh so ugly. He cares. He is with us. So how can we live God Emmanuel in our lives 365 days a year? Not just at Christmas, not just during the hard, but in the good times too. Maybe you've struggled with that question like I have, because believe me, I've struggled. What is filling that space that God created in our hearts for him to dwell? Think about it. What is holding us back from asking God to live with us every day of the year? How can I have a real, living, breathing, vibrant relationship with Jesus all the time? Or we need to ask ourselves, am I really content with just having a plastic Jesus I can carry around when I need him? We do that. I've done that. We can know a lot about him in our heads, but he's kind of missing or fragmented in our hearts. So how do we know if we're trusting God or not? It's pretty easy. If you're living in a world of fear, or if you are living in a world that you get so easily frustrated, guess what? We're not trusting. Trust doesn't come easily or naturally to any of us. Perhaps we're afraid of what trust means. Well, let me tell you, trust takes effort. We have to be intentional about trusting someone. Trusting is a choice. The truth about trust is that it gets a bad rap. Sometimes we think that if we trust, we're giving up. That's not true. Good news. Trust isn't about giving up anything. It's about opening up our hearts and asking God for him to pour himself into us, his plans, his direction, his ways, his love, his blessings, his presence. I mean, we could just go on forever. Trust isn't about giving up. It's about opening up our hearts and receiving absolutely everything that he wants to pour into us. Trust unfolds as our relationship and friendship with him develops and grows. I love how Brennan Manning put it. He said, trust is our gift back to God. What a beautiful relational exchange that is. And let me tell you, it is true. You cannot trust anyone that you do not know. I mean, seriously, any of you ladies, would you have given your baby to someone off of the street to watch for the evening? Why? You don't trust them. We cannot trust someone that we do not know. Same is true. We cannot trust a plastic God, a plastic Savior, or a plastic Jesus. This God, he is the real thing. He's not just a story in a book or words we sing at Christmas time in a beautiful Christmas carol. I don't know about you, but I want so much more. Today, tomorrow, for the rest of this year, for the rest of my life, I want so much more than just a plastic Jesus. I want the real deal. I want Jesus. Now, I know I've asked a lot of questions to begin our talk here this afternoon, but the good thing about questions is they were made to have answers, right? And tonight, we're going to find some of our answers just tucked in the folds of the Christmas story. And let's go back to one word, the betrothal. Sadly, it has kind of gotten mixed up with today's vernacular of the word engagement. We think of betrothal as, oh, Joseph and Mary were engaged, and oh, whoops. Well, that's not true. because the word betrothal actually means marriage. So how did a betrothal work? Well, it started off with an arrangement, usually between families. And then it was agreed upon. Then they came together and they signed a legal binding contract, like a wedding certificate. And it was also a covenant between two individuals, and most importantly, with God. So it was a big deal. It wasn't an engagement. It was truly a solid marriage. Now, with a contract like this, it could only be broken by death or divorce. So remember that. Keep that tucked away. And usually a year had passed between the signing of the marriage covenant, the marriage contract, and then the wedding celebration. So here we are in the Christmas story. Mary and Joseph are legally bound as husband and wife. It's the real thing. They're married, only on paper. Joseph, after the contract was signed, most likely went back home and started building a place for he and Mary to live. And Mary, no doubt, probably stayed with her family and started making and gathering items that were going to be used in their home. And like all young couples, both of them, no doubt, were looking forward to the time when they could come together and have the biggest party in the village and celebrate their marriage with their family and their friends. So here we are in the story. An ordinary day. Things were going just as they had planned. And then Joseph heard some news. His betrothed was pregnant. Now, Joseph knew this baby was not, definitely, without a doubt, not his. Why? Well, he hadn't even held Mary's hand, let alone been with her as her husband. He knew the baby wasn't his. So one way to make a Bible story real is step into it. Imagine. Place yourself within the vicinity, hear the conversation, or tap in to the feeling. So let's try to imagine, what did Joseph feel after he heard this news? Imagine his deep, deep disappointment. The confusion, Mary, no, not Mary, but Mary. His trust in her was shattered, blown to smithereens, and now what? Maybe you've been there too. Your life, your world is going according to your plans. You are meeting all of the goals that you have placed in front of you. And then on an ordinary day, you hear some news. You get a phone call. You get a text message. And in a flash, your world goes spinning out of control. Everything has changed. Joseph's plans changed. He was no longer looking forward to a celebration and to a life with Mary. He was now trying to figure out, how can I divorce Mary quietly? Without a fanfare or a ruckus, but quietly. Now, I had to ask myself, why quietly? I mean, Mary was pregnant. He legally could have done this. Perhaps it was to protect his standing in the community, or his respect with his friends and peers. Or maybe, just maybe, it was to protect Mary. Because remember, a woman who was caught in adultery could legally be stoned to death. So what was Joseph doing? He was protecting her from shame. He was protecting her from possible stoning. And in turn, what was he protecting? The baby she carried within. So while Joseph was working out the plans on how to divorce Mary, an angel came to him and said, "Don't be afraid. Do not fear." You know what? I love it that the first words we read about this story, and the first words that Joseph heard wasn't, "Woe is you, poor you." He said, "Don't be afraid. Do not fear. Now, when unplanned things happen to your life, wouldn't you just love it? If a heavenly messenger came down and stood in front of you and said, Debbie, don't worry. Don't worry. I know this isn't ordinary. And don't be afraid. What would that mean to me? What would that mean to you? It would tell me that none of this news that I was going to be hearing was catching God off guard, or God was going, oh, whoops, that one just slipped in. How'd that happen? No, God knew. And he said, don't be afraid. The news I am telling you is good news. Mary, she's going to have a baby. This is good news. Go ahead with your plans. Sometimes plans are turned upside down in our lives, and sometimes we don't see any good in them whatsoever. But the good is Emmanuel. God is with us. As he was with Joseph, he will be with us as well. The angel went on to tell him briefly according to the Bible story of what was going to be taking his place, and said, Joseph, go ahead with your plans. Go ahead with your original plans. So think about this. Joseph, he too was chosen by God. Chosen by God to be the earthly father, the earthly example, the earthly influence to God's son, Jesus. When I really stopped to think about it, it about blew my socks off. I mean, wow, what a guy this Joseph must have been. What confidence God had in Joseph by appointing this task to him. Ladies, what confidence God has in you when maybe your plans go spinning out of control. So Joseph's plans changed once again, kind of a flip and a flop. But he was going forward with a marriage. And we don't see Joseph trying to bargain with God. We don't see him arguing or saying, yeah, God, but Mary. Joseph agreed. Joseph said yes. Joseph trusted God. Remember, we cannot trust someone we do not know, right? So what does this tell us about Joseph? He must have known God. He must have known God in a personal, real relationship with him, because he said, yes, whatever you have planned, God, I accept it. He knew God had his back. And now we move to Mary. What type of a woman would you choose to raise your child? God had the choice of all of the women in the land, just like he had a choice with Joseph, yet he picked out common, humble, young Mary. We don't know much about her. No physical description. Her name was common. She lived in a village. She was raised in a Jewish home. And like most young women at that time, she was accepting and obedient to whatever her parents' wishes were. And no doubt, since she was a toddler, she'd heard the story of the coming Messiah, and maybe, like all girls, wondered, maybe. Not a chance. So here we find Mary, an ordinary girl on an ordinary day with an absolutely extraordinary God that had a plan for her life that would impact her life and all of us too, right here, right now, today. And the angel appeared to Mary. And he said, Mary, God's chosen you. And Mary's response is what probably our response would have been if an angel just sort of vaporized in front of us. The Bible tells us that she was frightened. And again, I love it, how the Bible makes note of this, that the angel said to her, what? Do not be afraid. Again, that's good news. It says, Emmanuel, he's coming. God is with you. And Mary's words, she didn't bargain. She didn't plea, woe is me, no lament. She didn't run. She said, I gladly submit myself to the plans of God. Let it happen as you said. Mary trusted. Mary opened up her heart, and boy, did she receive. How did Mary trust God? She must have known him. Maybe since she was young, maybe it was by an example of her parents. Maybe something had happened in their family home that her parents openly and willingly were an example of trusting God. We don't know the dynamic, and that's going to be a fun story to ask her to tell, won't it? But she trusted God. She said yes to his plans, and she opened up her heart to him, even though she knew that her life was going to be spinning out of control. It was going to go in a direction she had never thought possible. Her reputation was going to be sullied for the rest of her life. Her life was definitely going to be in danger. And yet, she said yes. Have you ever wondered if you would be so willing to say yes in a predicament like that? Could you have done what Mary and Joseph did? I'll tell you what, it's true. The tension of trusting, we all live in it, and it's not easy. It's hard to trust God. We're human after all. We all think we have great plans. We work hard to make our plans come to fruition. But I heard someone say the other day, our plans are like Jell-O. That's quite a description. Trusting doesn't come easily or naturally. I know the struggle. I'm sure you do too. I've been there. About 20 years ago, you see, I was angry. I was frightened. I was bewildered. I was confused. And I was this close to shaking my fist at God and walking away from him. You see, my husband was dying. He was a good man. And we'd been praying for God to heal him. And the more we prayed and the more people we got to pray for him, the worse he seemed to get. And I wondered, God, where on earth are you? Can't you hear my prayers? Can't you hear my cries? I was standing outside, and it was dark, and it was night, and I was having this argument with God. It was dark and it was quiet, and I was so angry. And I said, God, aren't you even hearing me? You probably don't even see me. I know right now that God not only saw me, he was with me. I know right now that God heard every single word that I prayed, and he knew the reason for every tear that I shed. The more I prayed, the harder it got. And I was thinking, like I said, of walking away from God because he wasn't doing what I had planned he should do. I had finished recently reading a book by Brennan Manning called Ragamuffin Gospel. Maybe you've read it too. And tucked within the pages was a prayer that went like this: Lord, I want to want you more than I want anything else in my life. Now, someplace in my heart, I really wanted to pray that, but I knew what that prayer would sound like if I was sincere. Lord, I want to want you more than I want my husband healed. I couldn't pray it. I said to God, this was part of my wrestling with God that night, I said, God, that's not fair. You're making me choose you or my husband. Why can't I have both? And it hit me. I was ready to turn my back on God, and I had this vision of playing forward in my mind what life would look like if my husband did die. I wouldn't have my husband, and I wouldn't have my God, who had been so faithful to me. And that thought scared me to death. And I thought again about that prayer. And I mustered every ounce of courage that I had to raise my arms and open up my hands and say, God, I want to want you more than anything else in my life. And it was like I could hear God whispering and saying, Debbie, don't say it if you don't mean it. It's a big prayer. I thought about it. My arms went higher, my hands went wider, and I said louder, Jesus, I want to want you more than I want anything else in my life. He was with me. My husband didn't survive. He died just a couple of weeks after that prayer. But let me tell you what, I was not alone. Emmanuel was with me. And he has been with me every day since. It's a rough story. You've probably been there. It's not just a story that is mine, it is yours too. But I had a personal encounter with God. Because at that moment, God became so much more to me than just a cute little sleeping plastic Jesus on a bed of straw. He became real in my life. He was trustworthy. During that period of time while my husband was ill, I had found a quote. I had written it down on a piece of paper and I tucked it in my pocket, and many times during the day I would pull that quote out and read it. I wanted God to infuse it into my body, make it become one with me. I wanted to believe it with every fiber of my being, and this quote went like this: God never leads his children otherwise than they would choose to be led if they could see the end from the beginning and discern or clearly see the purpose which they are fulfilling as co-workers with God. I didn't see the end from the beginning, but God did. And Mary and Joseph in their lifetime, they never saw the fruition of their yes, but God did. Maybe you are in the midst of a hard right now and you're saying, God, where are you? And let him whisper to you. He is saying, I'm right here. I am God, Emmanuel. I don't know about you, but that was enough and is enough for me. And then there's Jesus. The plan for him to coming to this earth was put in existence before the foundations of the earth were laid. Think about that. Jesus volunteered willingly, knowingly that he would be raised by earthly parents, and what was going to await him? A wooden cross. And what did he do? He said, yes, I'm going, and I'm going willingly. Why? He saw you. Just like I can see you now, he saw you. He knew exactly what you were going through right here, right now, at this very moment, and he said, I have to be with them. These are my people. These are my kids. I love what my friend Nancy Troyer wrote in her book. Jesus became one of us so we could see that he could be trusted. He was willing to come as a helpless, dependent baby, to be raised by flawed, broken human beings like you and like me. He was going to be living among the good, the bad, and the oh so ugly, and yet he still said yes. So what did Jesus give up? Everything. He gave up all of heaven. He gave up his glory. He gave up his honor. He gave up those face-to-face moments with his dad. He gave up all of his divine power. He gave up everything because he loves us, then and now. Jesus had a target on the back from the very moment of his existence. He was going to be hated, surrounded by evil. Life would be difficult, and the hardships would be so many, and a wooden cross he knew awaited him, and still he said yes. And still he came, and still he loved unconditionally. As I was preparing for this talk, I was reading a book called The Man Who Broke Into Auschwitz. His name was Dennis Avey. He was a World War II British soldier who had been captured and was sent to a POW camp right next to Auschwitz. You know Auschwitz. He ended up working side by side with Jewish prisoners. They were starving, they were frightened, they were abused. And outside of the camp, Dennis saw the horrendous treatment that these people were receiving from the SS guards. And he couldn't even begin to imagine, if it's this bad out here, what must it be like inside the electrified barbed wire fence of this place of pure evil? And he was determined that he was going to get in there somehow, some way. That some way he would make his way into the gates of hell. But why would anybody in their right mind do this, right? Dennis said in his book, "I've always gone into any situation that demands it." And he loved the quote by Albert Einstein that goes like this: "The world is not a happy place. There's a lot of evil in it. But there is none so evil as they that see and walk on by and do absolutely nothing about it." Dennis asked in his book, "So why take the risk?" And he said, "If there's ever going to be an answer to this evil, I have to be an eyewitness." On work detail, Dennis ended up befriending a Dutch Jew named Hans. They worked side by side, and with time, trust developed, and trust was a rare commodity in a prisoner camp like that. Conversations took place, and together they worked out a plan that they would exchange places for just a few days. Now, each man knew the risk. They knew the cost if they were going to get caught, and they went forward with the plan anyway. They observed, they watched, they were calculating the movements of the SS guards and the biting and barking German shepherds. They watched the rhythm of the camp, and they waited until that perfect moment that they had planned on. They met in a shed, kind of on the outskirts, that wasn't being watched or patrolled by anybody, and they quickly changed uniforms. Now, for Dennis, he was taking off his British uniform, which had given him some visual element of safety. He was a POW, not a prisoner in Auschwitz. He had a warm hat that he exchanged. He took off his sturdy leather boots, and in their place, he put on the uniform of a Jewish prisoner of Hans. It was thin, blue and white striped, tattered fabric. It was filthy and dirty, and it smelled awful. He put on the sweat-stained cap, and instead of his sturdy leather boots, what did he put on? He put on wooden shoes that did not fit. With minutes, the exchange took place, and with a nanosecond, Dennis went off with the prisoners back into the gates of hell of Auschwitz. And Hans, he went back with the POWs. Now, for Hans, what was he going to get? Well, it meant that he was going to have some more palatable food, maybe receive some food that had some nutrients in it that would give him a very slim chance at survival, because he was starving to death. He was going to be able to sleep on a straw mattress. Of course, it was going to be with other POWs, but it was a straw mattress. But for Dennis, it was a whole different thing. Because you see, the minute he put on the striped uniform of the prisoner, the uniform was lice-infested and full of bed bugs, and it started nipping and nibbling and eating at his skin. The wooden chutes didn't fit. They cut into his feet. He couldn't walk in them easily at all, and they quickly caused blisters. And as for the food, it was putrid. There was no way he was going to eat the rotting cabbage thing they called soup. The water was too dirty for him to even drink, and at nighttime, he was crammed into a bunk bed, a rough bunk bed with dozens of other starving, terrified Jewish prisoners. Dennis saw at night and during the day with his own eyes the brutality of the SS guards. He could smell the smoke and see the ash coming out of the crematorium. He felt continual fear, and he experienced the inhumane conditions that were surrounding him. Truly, it was a horror beyond belief. It was a nightmare. And now Dennis truly was that eyewitness of the evil that was called Auschwitz. While reading this book and while preparing this talk, it hit me like a thunderbolt out of the sky. Debbie. Jesus left the glory and the beauty and the purity of heaven to come into the Auschwitz of your life. Jesus came down to experience our hard daily life with us. Jesus exchanged the spotless robes of glory for what? Our tattered, bedbug-infested rags we call humanity. He left the streets of gold and of glory to walk in the muck and the mire of this thing we call home, this thing we call life. Jesus entered this world not like a human, but literally as a human. He volunteered, like Dennis, but bigger. He came willingly. Why? Because his heart is full of nothing but love. He said yes because he wants to be with us, Emmanuel. He sees us. He knows what you're going through. He cares and he loves and he just wants to wrap his arms around each one of us. Jesus came to give us hope. And I love the word in place of hope, the assurance. I mean, it's not cotton candy hope, you guys. It is solid assurance that this isn't all there is. Heaven awaits each of us. Jesus fully understands how hard it is to be us. He knows how hard it is to be me. He knows every detail of our life and all of the hard that we have gone through. And he came to be born as a babe so he could be Emmanuel, God with us, right here, right now. Look around. This is God with us. He is here. I know sometimes Jesus can seem so far away, like 2,000 years away from our lives. What does he know about the busyness of my life? The stresses, the things I've gone through, the work I have to do, our studies, our family mess, our family issues, our health concerns, our grief, our loss, our brokenness, our fears, and that close place of being where I'm ready to shake our fist at God and walk away from him. He knows. Jesus can easily get lost in the busyness of our life, our struggles, and our mess. But Jesus, those are my two favorite words. It means he's going to make an appearance. But Jesus, he knows. He's been an eyewitness, you see. He's walked in our shoes. He understands every detail of our life and what we're going through. Every tear we shed, he treasures it and puts it in a bottle. That's our God. That's our Jesus. And he wants to give us this place of freedom in our life to be able to trust him fully and completely. Remember, we cannot trust someone we do not know. That's why he came. That's why Jesus is so much more than our cute little plastic Jesus. Her name was Casey. In her blog, she wrote, "It was Christmas Eve and my heart was aching, full of uncertainty and fear because of the things that had recently happened in my life. As was my tradition, I went to the candlelight Christmas Eve service at my church. Families were there to celebrate. The church looked beautiful and the carols were just filling the building. And then my tears began to fall. I felt like such an imposter, like a cloud of grief and darkness all around the cheerful celebrating. I felt guilty for dampening the time of rejoicing all around me, and I sat there and began to talk to Jesus in my heart, and I said, 'Jesus, I am ruining your party.' I heard his response in my soul, and that changed Christmas for me forever. I heard, 'Casey, I came to that manger as a baby, not for those in celebration, but for those in mourning. I came for you at this moment right here and right now.' And it was there that Jesus showed me the heart of Christmas. Jesus stepped down to pursue the broken, the hurting, and the lost, and he came just for me. Jesus has come for each one of us too in closing. He is Emmanuel, God with us, God with us in the hospital room, the classroom, as we put our children to bed, as we wait for that phone call, as we welcome a new baby or we say goodbye to a dear loved one. He is here in this room with us now, God with us. This God, he is anything but plastic. He is real. I don't know what you're going through, but if you're like me, you have something heavy on your heart, God knows. He gets it. He understands, and he is with you. Maybe this year has broken you down, left you feeling isolated, grieving, fearful, hurt, angry, ready to walk away. I don't know where you're at, but God does. And I want to assure you, you don't have to feel like a downer in the midst of the celebration. As Max Lucado wrote, because of Christmas, we have a friend in heaven, and he knows. God is always near us, always for us, always in us, and we are always on his mind. That's Emmanuel. Jesus chose Joseph and Mary. He had a special plan for their life, and it made an impact on not only their life, but your life and my life as well. And Jesus, don't doubt it for a minute, has a plan for your life too. The good news, he has chosen us to be a part of his story. Jesus came to plant a future and a hope and an assurance in our lives, and he came to grow in our relationship with him. So this Christmas and in the days ahead, my prayer for you and my prayer for me is, oh Lord, please, please be born in me.
Everything inside me cries for order. Everything inside me wants to hide. Is this shadow an angel or a warrior? If God is pleased with me, why am I so terrified? Someone tell me I am only dreaming. Somehow help me see with heaven's eyes. And before my head agrees, my heart is on its knees. Holy is he, blessed am I, be born in me, be born in me. Trembling heart, somehow I believe that you chose me. I'll hold you in the beginning, you will hold me in the end. Every moment in the middle, make my heart your Bethlehem, be born in me. All this time we've waited for the promise. All this time you waited for my arms. Did you wrap yourself inside the unexpected, so we might know that love would go that far? Be born in me, be born in me. Trembling heart, somehow I believe that you chose me. I'll hold you in the beginning, you will hold me at the end. Every moment in the middle, make my heart your Bethlehem, be born in me. I am not brave just a girl, nothing more, but I am willing, I am yours. Be born in me, oh, be born in me. I'll hold you in the beginning, you will hold me at the end, every moment in the middle. Make my heart your Bethlehem, be born in me. Be born in me.
Amen. I want us to say amen. Right? Amen to a beautiful message. Amen to a prayer of a song. Amen in our hearts that yes, that he will be born in our hearts again every day. I want to say thank you this afternoon before we sing our final song to a number of people that make this special time possible every year. I want to begin by saying thank you to our speaker, Debbie. Thank you so much for blessing us with a beautiful message. Thank you. Yes. And thank you so much to our wonderful musicians. We had Natasha Thomas on the harp. I think she had another engagement, so she's already left us. But she's a pre-med student at La Sierra University and has played the harp for 11 years. And though she's not, that's not her chosen career, but she does a wonderful job, and we were blessed by that. Julia, thank you so much. How blessed we are to have you in our midst. Yes. You're doing your master's in vocal performance at Redlands and have come to us from, Washington? That's for you, Washington, D.C., where you were going, the school there. But even more here in our midst, you are the soprano leader and that section of our sanctuary orchestra, choir. But you're the director also of our children's choirs. Thank you so much. And Adriana Pereira, I think all of us know Adriana. Thank you so much. Yes. Director of our worship and musical arts. Prior to coming here, you were the director of the Bach Conservatory at Sagunto in Spain and the chair of the Department of Music at Andrews University. He's married to Francisco, who's helping us serve today. And they have 2 beautiful children. Thank you so much. Yes. I also want to say thank you to all the support staff. Media, today we are able to live stream and to say hello. I want you to say hello to our friends that are watching from the Linda Valley, from other places, from homes, local and far. Thank you to our media department. Thank you so much. To our pastoral staff for their support, to our maintenance staff, to the You Reach Cafe, if you like, yes, brownies, delicious, vegan, yes. To Najwa, of course, she always helps us. Raquel Linens as well. I also want to say thank you to specific people that every year commit to helping us make some fabulous food. We have Keith Brower and Peggy Haynes. I'm going to ask you to stand. Okay, Peggy, Merle Hildebrand. Thank you so much, Merle. Danielle Hoxie. You got to stand up, you guys. Vashti Mitchell. Thank you, Vashti. Dick and Jeannie Sample. All that baking for hours. Thank you. Priscilla Walters. Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But there is a team behind all this. And I want my Christmas Tea team to please stand up at this time. Lynn Adams And Judy and Karen, please stand up. You are the reason why everything looks so beautiful. You decorate so beautifully. We have other helpers too, but Lynn and Karen and Judy, please remain standing. We also have Fabiola Guzman. And you know, these people come with their families, so you know. And Zelma Lewis, and Karen Rawson and Kim Rawson, Marilyn Thompson and Tracy Weatheralls. Thank you. Please say thank you to them. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I dearly love each of you. There was many others of you who came yesterday, who came early today, who have helped us. But there's something about a team that works together to make things happen. And I truly thank God for each of you. So thank you so much. Well, it is a beautiful tradition that we have every year. Come, Alexis. To sing together Silent Night. Now, I think that in heaven I may venture into singing, but I'm going to leave the leading of Silent Night to someone that will do a wonderful job inviting all the little ones to come, Alexis Hubbard.
I would like to invite all the other little girls to come up and sing with me Silent Night.
Our Christmas blessing for you this afternoon comes from the lyrics of a song written by Mark Schultz, When Love Was Born. Starlight shines, the night is still. Shepherds watch from a hill. I close my eyes to see the night when love was born. Perfect child gently waits. A mother bends to kiss God's face. I close my eyes to see the night when love was born. Angels fill the midnight sky. They sing, hallelujah, he is Christ, our King. Emmanuel, Prince of Peace, love come down for you and me. Heaven's gift, the holy spark, to let the way inside our hearts. Bethlehem, through your small door, came the hope we waited for. The world was changed forevermore when love was born. I close my eyes to see the night when love was born. Dear Lord, the love that was born, we ask for a special blessing. Gift us with your sustaining love and light the holy spark within us, that we may share your grace, your joy, and your compassion to all those we minister to in the coming year. In your loving name, amen.
Well, another year. Thank you so much for joining us in the Christmas Tea 2021. God bless you and keep you until we meet again. And every year, people ask, well, can I help? Can I bake? Can I do something? You may next year. We'll let you know. I tell you what, remember to take your ornaments. Those are for you to keep. And remember, this year, in your collection of ornaments, it's a very special little memento that we have for you. Also, if you so choose to, we have this beautiful, lovely white birch trees. You're welcome to take one home. You'll have to speak with Marilyn Thompson on your way out if you would like to take that and make a donation to the Christmas tea. Otherwise, God bless you and keep you, and we'll see you again in 2022.
I know.